Welcome to episode 128 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Winning Never Gets Old edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. And my name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host, Josh Fine, back from vacation. So told me a little bit offline, but how was the week away?
Yeah, the week away was pretty relaxing. Just went to the beach mostly, and was able to see clear water and all that good stuff, and did a little bit of fishing too, and just hung out with the family and all that stuff. So it was a pretty relaxing week. Just get the mind clear and everything, and get back to work this week and all that stuff, and back to hosting the show or co-hosting the show with you and talking about everything that happened this weekend, and we saw a lot of stuff that happened at Michigan and Nashville. So I'm ready to get into it and talk about it.
Yeah, it was definitely a weekend, at least in the two major series for veterans, legends winning, in Kevin Harvick breaking his longest losing streak of his career, I believe, to win and get himself into the playoffs more than likely. A big time performance by Kevin Harvick, and he got to drive his little daughter Piper around the track, continuing Ford's recent domination at Michigan International Speedway. We'll go over that. Bubba Wallace qualified on pole for the race and had a really fast car, but as we saw and we'll discuss, being in traffic, very aero sensitive, these cars. At this track, it wasn't as big of a deal at California, I think, or ACS because of the surface, but we'll talk about that. And he was bummed out, but he got a second place finish, got himself into the top 20 in points. We'll see what happens with that as it stands right now. 15 winners. And if you're not Martin Truex or Ryan Blaney, you have to win to get into the playoffs now. So, a pretty insane thing to see with 3 races to go. Scott Dixon broke his tie with the great Mario Andretti to win his 53rd IndyCar race. It wasn't initially a day for Scott Dixon. I think there's any number of drivers that had a chance yesterday. Scotty McLaughlin starting on pole, but Josef Newgarden was up there. There was a whole cast of characters. 2 Andretti cars had issues early in the race, and then they ended up finishing in the top 5. Lots of carnage, cautions, which has become the norm at Nashville. They had weather delays at both of these races for lightning, so that kind of moved the starts back for both races. Marcus Ericsson had a rough day, and then went and torched Roman Grosjean on Twitter. So that was funny, but it wasn't funny for him. The defending race winner had an off day, and so did points leader Will Power, who had issues. So we'll get into all that. There's 3 races to go. They'll have their last, they have an off week this week, and then they'll go to Gateway, Worldwide Technology Raceway, next week. I'm going to get in the XFinity, which saw Keebler Gibbs win his 5th race of 2022 and held off the whole JRM brigade. You had Colleague actually running decent for the first time in a while amongst all 3 cars, not just AJ Allmendinger. Good weekend for Keebler because he ended up getting his first career Cup top 10 as well. So good weekend for him. In the roundup, we'll be talking about the IMSA race at Road America, which saw the Konica Minolta Acura win for the first time in a while, give themselves a points lead where they're going to have a nice, month or so, about maybe 2 months, I think, before Petit Le Mans. So they'll have time to test the new, GTP car, but they'll have the points lead going to Road Atlanta for Petit Le Mans. The GT class will have another race at VIR here in a few weeks' time, and then we'll see what goes on with that. MotoGP, Moto2 came back from their summer break at Silverstone. The Americans, Joe Roberts was good. The American racing duo of Cameron Beaubier and Sean Dillon Kelly, not so much. MotoGP, Pecco Bagnaia gets a win there. We'll preview Seoul E-Prix for Formula E. A few races to go there. NHRA is back after the Western Swing at Topeka. Might get into Marco Andretti news that he's going to actually drive a Cup or Xfinity race for Borchetta. Might figure out what the heck Tony's announcing. Might be that he's going to buy an AJ Foyt Racing, and he'll have a deal with a Ford. He'll have deals with Ford, Chevy, and Dodge, which is interesting. But then when you look at who he's trying to emulate, it's not really that far off there. Talk about some football, and since we're getting in the preseason football now, the Hall of Fame game took place last week, and you guys played in it, right? Yeah, you guys were in that game, right?
Yeah, we
against
played against
Oakland.
the Oakland Raiders. Yeah,
or the Las Vegas Raiders. Sorry, and then
they may as well be the Oakland Raiders. It's like the teams. It's hard to get used to the new names and tend to refer to them how they've always been called. But yeah, the Oakland Raiders defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars. 23 to or 27 to 11, I think.
11, yeah.
So, mid-season form, I guess, for the Jags. But I mean, it's just preseason. But we'll get into it later.
Yeah, we'll get into it later. Tony Baselli, the first ever draft pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars, was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Finally.
So that was a big... And Bryant Young, who was a guy who played on the Niners' last Super Bowl team as a rookie, got into the Hall of Fame. So that was great for me. As a Niner fan, other big names like Dick Vermeil, the legendary coach, got in, et cetera, et cetera. Talk about fantasy football maybe there. Josh will bring back the sim segment since it was away for a week, and we'll go on from there. So I guess first piece of business we have to talk about is Kevin Harvick winning his, 59th career Cup Series race, which is insane to think how many years ago. He wasn't exactly as prolific as he has become. He's one behind Kyle Busch, might possibly become his teammate. But they're ninth and he's 10th. He was 10th in wins. Junebug said that in the broadcast yesterday as the play-by-play guy. So 10th in wins. Of course, the next big target is Dale Earnhardt. I don't know if he's going to get to 76. Kyle Busch has definitely slowed down in his winning because there was a time where I think he was probably looking at getting to 76 and 83 and 84, which are those iconic numbers where you talk about DW, Bobby Allison, Jimmy Johnson, Cale Yarborough, and then Dale Earnhardt's there too. So those are the next targets. But for Kevin Harvick, he needed a win in the worst way. He was in trouble points-wise, even though they'd been running well recently. Had a good uptick in performance, the only Stewart-Haas car that really is performing at the moment. But yeah, Kevin Harvick goes out there, wins the Firekeepers Casino 400. And I think he led the last 38 laps of the race and got a great restart at the end and beat Bubba Wallace for that deal here. And Denny Hamlin finished third. So his driver finishes second. He finishes third, gets a stage win in the process. Joey Logano fourth, former multiple winner at Michigan. Ryan Blaney, former winner at Michigan, rounds out the top five. So 3 Fords and 2 Toyotas. And then you add Martin Truex. So 3 Fords and 3 Toyotas in the top 6. Kyle Larson, 3-time winner at Michigan, finished 7th. Eric Jones gets a top 10. And Eric Jones is 13th in points. So that's probably the best they've been. And since Eric Almirola, Josh and I were talking about it, was Josh, you said 2015 when he had that chance in the play to make the chase So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
that's the best they've
2014
been
when they
in
last
20.
made the playoffs too.
Yeah, when he won at Daytona for his first win, or 13. Yeah, 13 for to win it. And then Alex Bowman actually got a top 10, which is amazing considering how bad they've been. And Keebler Gibbs rounds out the top 10 with his first career top 10 finish in relief of Kurt Busch. But all talk is that Kurt Busch is going to try to come back this week at Richmond. So we'll see what happens with that. But Christopher Bell was a guy that was up there. Suarez and Ross Chastain didn't have the greatest qualifying runs, but they were running up front. None of them had anything to show for it, though. Unfortunately, Bell hooked himself across Ross Chastain's nose, destroyed his car. I don't know what happened with the strategy or whatever. It's the same question I have with Chase Briscoe, who had started 23rd, went up to the top 10 really quickly, and then was up and down all day, was in the top 10 late in the race, and then somehow or another ended up finishing 20th, um, which is fucking pathetic. And now his point situation is very tenuous. But we'll get in. Let's take the Kevin Harvick side first. It's unexpected, Josh, that he gets this victory. Not because he can't win. It's been a long time for him. It's been over like nearly 2 years for him to win a race. And Stuart Haas has not been great this year. And Harvick, I mean, he wants to say, well, if people are doubting us, you're the only, like, there had to be doubt creeping in his mind that, he's running top 10 in points and he was going to miss this playoff likely because there was no chance he was going to make up that many points. So he took it into his own hands. Him and Rodney Childers used the great restart, learning from his mentor, Ron Hornaday, to get that great last restart there, and get a win that was necessary, not only for him, but I think the whole organization.
Yeah, I mean, this was a important victory for Kevin Harvick because going into this race hadn't won 59 races, and we were beginning to question how long would it be until he would win. This is a very uncharacteristic of him because prior to 2021. He had the 9-win season in 2020. Of course, missed the cutoff for the Final Four, and of course, a lot of people and himself argue that should have been in that Final Four. And not only that, but this championship system doesn't actually reward wins like they say it does, and that's the prime example that we can use for that. In 2018, of course, part of that big three, winning I think 8 races as well that year. So, recent years he's been very dominant. In the last 2 years in the 4 car, they haven't been, close to what they were, and I think is more reflective of the struggles of the SHR as an organization, and then also other teams catching up to them. But it's also factor of bad luck too. They've had a lot of races this year where if they weren't in position to win or had a chance, they got taken out in something. Case in point, a couple weeks back with Pocono, when Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin, their incident, and Kevin Harvick ended up being the innocent bystander in that one. A lot of other things that this season that they cost them chance at victory and whatnot. So this getting a win here is important for them to make it into the playoffs, and now they've qualified their way in, at least for now. They've got enough points based on everybody else, but now they have one win, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens here going forward. Can they contend beyond the first round of 15, round of 16? So, and the round of 12, can they make it beyond that? Do they have the pace? But Michigan is probably a place where you could have picked Kevin Harvick. 2021, both of those races, won last year. So, or well, not last year, but of course, but he's been historically good at Michigan. So, this was the track for him to do it. So was able to use the advantage of aerodynamics as well. Of course, drove away from the field on the last restart. Got a good push from Kyle Larson and Joey Logano on the top side, and was able to drive away from Bubba Wallace and the rest of the field. So Harvick, took advantage of the position he was in, and now finally winner after 59 races, and of course he gets to do what he did like he did a few years ago with his son riding around the car in the victory lap, and he's able to do that now with his daughter. So a cool moment for him and his family there as well to be able to do that. So back in victory lane, and now there's a second Stewart-Haas car in the playoffs. Another Ford finally won. So the Ford hasn't been as good as Toyota and Chevrolet this season, and maybe they are going to turn things around here, and maybe we see more Fords, and maybe Ryan Blaney can win in the next couple of races, because of course he might be on the cutoff too, depending on how things play out the next couple of weeks. So now we got 15 drivers qualified for the playoffs based on wins, and now we just need one driver to be able to win a race, and then they'll re-rack it by points, and then we'll see if we can get another winner, and then that would really shake things up. So on that note, I think one winner is definitely possible, and getting one more winner, so we have 16 winners. I think that's definitely possible, but then also you got to think about can we get another winner that would 17th winner and shake the standings up and reorganize by points that way. So I think we can get at least one more winner, but I don't know about two, because a couple weeks ago would have thought that we would have gotten new winners every race or every other race, but starting to turn out not that way. Although Kevin Harvick winning does change things up a little bit, but not going at the rate that I thought it would have gone. But we'll see what happens, and we'll see in the next couple weeks. We got Richmond, Watkins Glen, and Daytona coming up for the Cup Series, and we'll see if anything can happen. Which I think 3 of those tracks definitely something can happen to cause a shakeup in the standings.
Yeah, the notion that Martin Truex has to win, more than likely, Blaney too. As it stands, if you look at the 3 racetracks, I think Daytona's the best chance. He's always been up front. For many years he's been up front. Hasn't closed there as well as he does at Talladega. If there's a racetrack, I would say more than likely that Martin Truex could win, it would be Richmond, because all of a sudden over the last few years he's become a short track guy. The Toyotas were really good there. The Hendrick cars were good there in the spring race. Road courses, of course, used to be a thing, but the Toyotas have not shown much pace on the road courses this year. So it's kind of an issue. And then super speedway racing for Martin Truex has never really been a thing in the Cup Series. So that kind of makes it hard. And then you go and look at that. You talked about the points, and I mean, yeah, I'll bring in Bubba in this case, because I was just looking up Briscoe's average finish, Chase Briscoe, who right now, if you're talking about that re-rack and stuff, I mean, Bubba has been running well. He's on the best run of his career, 4 consecutive top 10s, and looking good, 2 top 5s in a row. First career pole, ran up front for a good part of the race. The strategy early put him back in traffic. He didn't really have as good of a car in traffic. The aero became an issue, which I think is something to look at, since there's talk about Indianapolis Motor Speedway coming back again. Michigan and Indianapolis and Pocono all seem to have similar characteristics over time, and the racing there to be a little more spread out. I mean, obviously at Pocono, I think it got a little more spread out there, and because of the aero after a few laps. Here at Michigan, it was the same thing. That restart was essentially the race win, and Bubba was very disappointed, and was very was. I mean, I know he knows he needs to win, and based on the points, as Josh showed, one of the things that one of the people who are posting the points and stuff, that you need to win now, unless you're Martin Truex or Ryan Blaney, unless one of them win, and then you definitely have to win. It's crazy to think that the guys that are second and fourth in overall points might miss the playoffs, which is ridiculous, I think. There should be some. I mean, the point is they have too many cars in this anyway. I think fundamentally it should be 8 in the trucks, 10 in Xfinity, and 12 in Cup. There should actually be value in making the playoffs. 16 drivers. This is an anomaly of all anomalies right now. What's happened. Right now, at this point, Kurt Busch missing these races should basically knock him out. Not because I want him to get knocked out, but it should be a thing where, you won. It's not his fault he got hurt. He'd be in real trouble. Like, he'd need a second win. Like, you want to say you want to win, you need to win a lot. Chase Briscoe has been terrible. His average finish is trash, and it's because of the terrible strategy. And I say it every week on here that Johnny Klausmeier sucks. They have the top 10 average in terms of qualifying, and they seem to have one lap pace, but their strategy in races leaves a lot to be desired, and they're freaking 20th in average finish, and your 16 cars make the playoff. You're behind cars and teams that have been penalized. Really, like Michael McDowell lost 100 points, so they're ahead of us in points. You got Eric Jones who needs to win. You got Cindric who's a rookie. Kurt Busch is ahead of us, but then he hasn't run every race either. Tyler Reddick doesn't have a great stat line. He qualifies well. Eric Almirola is ahead of Chase Briscoe in average finish. Austin Dillon, William Byron. Of course, William Byron won 2 races early in the year, but he's been garbage for most of the year after that. And his stat line is pretty similar to Chase Briscoe's, but he has the 2 wins, so he doesn't have to worry about it. You look at somebody. I'm trying to look for Alex Bowman. I thought his average. He only has 3 top 5s and 10 but he has 10 top 10 finishes, and that's where he gets away with it because he's been wildly inconsistent. Bubba right now, he's been moving up. He has 4 top 5s and 6 top 10s this season, so it's a career year for him. He's in the top 20 right now in points. He's ahead of Kurt Busch, albeit Kurt Busch has missed last 2 races, so that's where the people who want to move the goalpost on him will say. But we're getting into a time here. I know the road course is definitely not going to be the place he has a chance, but we get into this thing, like you talked about the re-rack, Josh. Outside of, I think Blaney and Martin Truex, Bubba's probably the next best or Eric Jones, so the guy that replaced him. And so I think Eric Jones and Bubba Wallace are the next 2 guys that if we really wanted to flip this on its lid, it could get really crazy, and then it becomes a points race at Daytona, which is insane. But that's on the basis of those 2 guys win these next 2 weeks or something like that, or whatever. I think I don't know who you're thinking of, but I think Bubba Wallace's progression here in the last few weeks, maybe it's because in part Pert is not in the car, so they've been able to funnel their focus on making sure that Bubba's car is, everything is, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed or whatever. But it's good. It's a necessary thing considering some of the crap that was going on earlier in the year. And it shows the relationship that Booty, Barker has with Bubba is a great relationship. And it's something that he's a supporter, and he's supportive. He can read his guy. He knows how to keep his guy up. which is what Bubba needs. But what are your thoughts on that? Talking about this re-rack and the notion that some of the people that are on that cutoff line and some of the people that could possibly win to get in.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think, with Bubba Wallace, of course, if he wins, he'd be the 16th guy. And if we get, another winner, say if Eric Jones wins, that's going to cause the re-rack and, we'll order it by points. And I mean, I think the guys that you have to worry about is, like you said, Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric. And I mean, Kurt Busch as well. But I don't know if he's gonna come back. We'll see if he does, but I mean, I guess to be fair to him, I don't think he'd be this slow if it weren't for his injuries, but or his concussion. But I think, well, I mean, we can include him there too. But those three guys would be in trouble, I think, if they went by points based on the number of winners that we had. So yeah, it's a really tight footing overall. Even though we have guys who think they're secure on points right now, it's a very you know tight throughout the lower half of the playoff field. It's I think you're gonna have to see what happens at Daytona, come down to the last lap of that race, and who's up front, based on points, based on wins. If Bubba Wallace is up front, how does he race on the last lap, or Ryan Blaney or Martin Truex, and or even go to Watkins Glen. Are we going to see somebody dive bomb into turn one or into the boot, or not the boot, but the bus stop chicane?
Carousel,
Yeah, the
or
carry,
yeah,
or anywhere there. So
yeah.
that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out based on uh, where drivers lie in that back half of the field. Are they going to start doing desperation, or even I saw something on Reddit where, let's say, final restart of uh Daytona, if Chase Elliott's up front and Ryan Blaney's right next to him, um, does he, or let's say Ryan Blaney's like right behind him, does he like try to figure out a way to make sure that Ryan Blaney doesn't win, to make sure he doesn't get into the playoffs and let somebody else win? Let's say Bubba Wallace is in front of Chase Elliott on the final restart, and Chase pushes him to the win and gets him ahead of Ryan Blaney. That would throw Ryan Blaney out of the playoffs, and Bubba Wallace would get in. Do you see a move like that happen, where you have a driver pull a move where one guy suddenly is out like that to make sure that the other guy doesn't get in? That's something you have to think about. And I would think you just go for the win instead of trying to do something other. Trying to pull, I guess, a galaxy brain move to make sure somebody else doesn't get in. But we'll see what happens. Do we see something like, I don't know, Kevin Harvick? Remember back in 2015 when he needed to keep on going in the playoffs, and he pulled out of line at Talladega, and then caused the final lap crash that basically, after the end of it, ended up taking out Dale Jr. and a bunch of other guys out of the playoffs in that chaotic restart and fracas and all of that. So there are a lot of things that could happen with the way that this playoff system works, and what drivers might do, and a lot of mind games that could be playing. So we'll see what happens. And it's going to be very interesting to see. And I mean, one more thing on that, going back to what you said before with at the beginning of being 16 drivers in a 30 player or 30 driver eligible field. I mean, it's exactly like basketball, because with NBA right now, you have 8 teams in each conference out of 30 teams in the entire league that make the playoffs. So that's 16 teams. So that's more than half the league that can make the playoffs right there, that are eligible. And then on top of that, you have the play-in games and everything that they've implemented since the bubble back in 2020. So it just goes to show, that they devalue. I mean, they're kind of emulating other leagues, emulating basketball, even football now with the expansion of the playoffs. We talked about it last year. Like, they've really, I guess, devalued the meaning of who should deserve to be in the field and the quality of the field. Because yeah, you're right. Like in Cup, it should definitely be 12, like it was back before they expanded the field to this size. And Xfinity, I think there's a lot of drivers that probably don't deserve to be in it either, and definitely should be 10 drivers in Xfinity, and I think maybe 6 or 8 in the Truck Series. So, yeah, it's definitely a lot of drivers that probably shouldn't be in it. That they have one win, they get lucky, make the playoffs. Like Chase Briscoe or Austin Cindric. I mean, they haven't had a great season otherwise, so they shouldn't be able to make the playoffs like that. Versus Ryan Blaney, who's been fairly consistent and just hasn't won, or Martin Truex, who's in kind of the same boat there as well.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the waiver that they get in because they're in the top. They come up with some sort of cockamamie thing, and then there'll be an 18 driver playoff or some shit. I'm waiting for that because that's where we're going. Um, Especially if there's 16 different winners and the last winner isn't either Blaney or Truex. I mean, I'm a Chase Briscoe guy, and I've been saying it all. They've stepped on their own junk so many times this year. Uh, they've had win opportunities. They had a chance to win the 500. They were there at the what do you call dirt, and he ran over Tyler Reddick and cost them both a chance to win. That's the lucky win that Kyle Busch got. Or else he wouldn't have a win, which would be interesting, considering he doesn't have a sponsor or a contract for next year. But and then Tyler Reddick would have 3 wins. He'd probably be a little further up. The amount of points, and then Coda, another one, qualifying up front, Road America, nothing came from that. He qualified on pole at Gateway, cut a tire. There's so many races this year that if they do miss the playoffs, they have to look at themselves, points wise. Cindric has been inconsistent. He's a rookie. You're going to expect that. Pace wise, the Penske cars have not been horrible. They're not the best by any means, but you have Logano up there, always seems to be up there, but then he's the leader of the team. Ryan Blaney he's had his most consistent season of his career. He's always been, he's generally been an inconsistent guy. This year he's changed that up, been way more consistent, and now he's staring at a possibility that he may not make the playoffs and he's second in points, which is a bad look for NASCAR. When you have guys like Denny Hamlin's like 22nd in points or whatever the hell he is, because he's fallen out of so many damn races. Like that's crazy. He's or not 22nd. I mean, he's 17th. My fault. He's behind Briscoe and he's behind Cindric in points, but not by much. He's only 9 points behind Briscoe, 7 behind Cindric. But he has 2 wins, so that's why he's okay. We'll see what happens. I mean, 2nd and 4th in points right now are in a battle to possibly make it. Then you have Eric Jones, who's actually 14th in points. And then Eric Almirola and Bubba Wallace. They're all inside the top 20. There's 36 charters. 16 drivers make it in. And probably it would be a little bit more intriguing if it was just 12. Personally, because what would happen is then you go and I'm just curious. We'll just before we get in the Xfinity, if it was 12, Suarez would actually be the cutoff because he'd have the most points. So Bowman and Suarez would be whatever the cutoff guys. Kevin Harvick would knock his teammate out. That would have been something. Like, can you imagine? Yesterday, I would have been sitting there. I was rooting for Bubba anyway, but it's like, oh, Kevin Harvick wins. He knocks Chase Briscoe out of the playoffs. Oh shit! Wouldn't that be better than what we're about to see or likely could see in this playoff. Like, that's just me, but
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
the intrigue of, oh, you've won a race, but it doesn't. You need to do more than that. You need to be there. There. I guess it's because I'm old school. I I value actually being able to show up every week and doing what you need to do every week, because that's how Tony Stewart won his first championship, and Dale Earnhardt won 7 championships, and Jeff Gordon won all 4 of his titles that way, and et cetera, et cetera. I think there's a value in running good every week, or at least the vast majority of weeks, eliminating mistakes, staying within yourself. Top 5s and top 10s mean something. That's what it should be. You're telling us we need to get stage points, you need to get stage wins, but those don't have value in regards to whether you make the playoff. You say it's playoff points, but it doesn't matter towards playoff eligibility. So there's a chance that Briscoe, based on his playoff points, he has more playoff points than a couple of these other guys, but he's right now he has 8 points, so he's ahead of Cindric, not ahead of Hamlin. He's 1 point ahead of Kurt Busch. Then it's like, you really want us to value stage points and stage wins, then make it that way. Put an added emphasis on that. So, people would go for those stage wins and basically throw away races like, they've done on the road courses this year. Chase Briscoe has done both at Road America and Indy. They didn't have cars to win per se, but they could have finished in the top 10. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't have very high hopes for Richmond, because their short track program has been pretty mediocre, and outside of Phoenix, which essentially isn't a short track, but it's a flat track. They had a good run there, of course, Briscoe winning, but I don't have a good feeling about this weekend, and I think there's a good chance, and we'll talk about it in the previews, but good chance that we're going to have 16 winners here after this coming weekend. Another series in a different series that has, I guess, less intrigue in regards to their points battle. Josh talked about it in regards to people who really belong. I mean, if there was 10 drivers in the Xfinity playoff, it would make sense. But Ty Gibbs has taken his 5th win of 2022 at Michigan, the New Holland 250, wins over Justin Allgaier, Noah Gragson, who won both stages and started on pole. Buckshot Jones. Buckshot Jones. And, well, at least Noah Gragson wrecked again yesterday, which was fun. Even though he was running well, too, which was, I'm like, oh, here we go. Him and his butt buddy, Ty Gibbs, were running well. I'm like, oh, here we go. And then Noah Gragson did Noah Gragson things, and he wrecked a car, which I'm sure Matt Collig is really happy about. Every single time that Noah Gragson seems to get in that car, he wrecks it. So that must be nice. Buckshot Jones, Austin Hill finished 5th, and he debuted in the Cup Series, got a top 20 out of it. So good on him. Probably the likely replacement for Tyler Reddick for 2024. Josh Berry finished 6th, AJ Allmendinger 7th, Daniel Hemrick 8th, Riley Herbst 9th, and Landon Castle 10th. So essentially, the 10 guys that we're going to see in the top 10 guys that we're going to see in the playoff, outside of, like, if Landon Castle, he makes it because of the 12 driver situation. He makes it in as 11th, but he's been wildly inconsistent. Speed hasn't been there, but he will get that. I don't know why my phone does that. It just randomly goes and does, like, voice something or another. Sheldon Creed is 52 points behind Ryan Sieg. Anthony Alfredo 75, Brandon Brown 87 points behind, but Brandon Brown is not going to be in that car much after starting with Watkins Glen, I'm sure. So he's basically done. Maggot Moron Brett Moffitt doesn't have a ride anymore. So, well, good on him. Jeb Burton, Maya Snyder, Jeremy Clements, Alex LeBay. Those are all guys. Those are really the ones. Or Alex LeBay hasn't run every race. So it's Maya Snyder, Jeremy Clements, and Jeb Burton. Bailey Curry, who has some sponsorship, so might make a play. But Ty Gibbs wins again. He's 28 points out of the overall lead. Justin Allgaier's 19 points out of the overall lead. So that's the battle for the regular season title is not over by any means. It is in Cup, but it isn't in the Xfinity Series. There's a few races to go before their playoff starts. They're going into September before their playoff starts. So they'll be in the it'll be the late September before they get to the first round of the playoffs. They still have 5 races to go in the regular season, but Ty Gibbs getting that win on Saturday, big win for him. Good points. Gegson going and getting those stage wins and playoff points. He's putting himself in a position to be that fourth guy because Allgaier, Gibbs, and Gregson have over 20 playoff points. If Allmendinger can hold on and get those 15 playoff points, he would be the points leader going into the playoffs. But he needs those 15 playoff points considering their pace. There was an announcement today that Justin Haley will be a fourth car in the event at Daytona. Now, of course, with Josh, with Florida weather, we'll see if they're able to qualify. That's always been a thing there, where in the summer when they qualify, if you don't have points, you might get knocked out, like Boris said used to, when he'd qualify up front, and then they'd rain out qualifying, and then he'd go home. But yeah, the Gibbs gets the win, leads the most laps. Gregson won both stages, second most laps, and Justin Allgaier, who's yet again putting himself in a position to possibly get that elusive championship. But Gibbs slayed the JRM team again and reasserts himself as the best of the rest, if you say, in regards to JRM being the best team in the sport right now, even though Junior doesn't want to say that. They're the best Xfinity team by far. But Gibbs winning tells you where Gibbs is, and the Cup equipment, maybe that Cup time that he's getting is also helping.
Yeah, I think it's also helping, but then you also have to consider there are a lot of differences between the Cup car and the Xfinity car. So on that end, not different, but the more reps you get, the better. But for Ty Gibbs, 5th win, and more than likely will end up being the number 1 seed in the playoffs once they re-rack everything. And I think AJ Allmendinger is going to end up being the regular season champion as long as he can hold on, which would be something because he won the regular season championship last year, which I guess we've never had in the Xfinity Series, a back-to-back regular season champion. That would be interesting. But Ty Gibbs winning, and yeah, it was a fairly interesting race, and I think the aero issues that we saw in the Cup Series weren't as prevalent as in the Xfinity Series race. I think you saw a little bit more racing up front, especially at the end of stage 2. You saw Noah Gragson get up alongside AJ Allmendinger and take the lead on the last lap of the stage, and he's able to go out and win the stage there, and apparently threw up in his mouth in his helmet in that. So it's something he's got to look into, I guess, on the side off the racetrack. that's I guess a health issue or psychological
Cocaine's a
issue.
hell of a drug.
Yeah, well, that's true, but I don't think cocaine causes throwing up. But um, yeah, but it's gonna be interesting on that end. But uh, yeah, I thought Justin Allgaier would probably be the guy to look out for in this race, but I think Allgaier had an opportunity, but excuse me, that he ended up just coming up one spot short. Um, and he wasn't quite as dominant as what I thought he would have been. Ty Gibbs ends up, leading the most laps. Gregson, of course, both stage wins, led the second most laps, and Josh Berry ran solidly as well. Of course, last year this was his race to win. Go back and watch that one again. Josh Berry had a great car in that one last year, and didn't quite get to back up that performance or get the win that he deserved from last year. But
Striving for what's his name? Annette, right?
yeah, he was subbing in last year, but yeah, this year now in his own number 8 car, finished in 6th, started 6th, finished 6th, though. Only led 3 laps, but continuing to push forward. And yeah, like you said, I think the 7, 8, and 9 are the best cars in the series, or at least the representing the best team in the series. And I think Sam Mayer is a little bit behind them, but he's still a rookie, he's still trying to learn the ropes, so probably not too far behind on speed. Just has to figure it out and finish these races, I guess, for him. But Austin Hill continuing to get solid finishes in the number 21 car, finishing in 5th. He's a solid super speedway racer as well, solid speedway racer, so that's not too surprising there, and probably building up a little bit of momentum here in the playoffs. So, we'll see what happens as we push forward. We still got 5 races to go in the Xfinity Series playoffs. We'll see what happens as they continue to press forward, but it's going to be interesting with the race, I guess, for the regular season championship. Talked about Allmendinger, thinking that I think he will probably come out with it. He's still got a couple of good tracks for him on that end, but Justin Allgaier is not too far behind, only 19 points behind on that end to catch AJ Allmendinger for the regular season championship. We'll see. And then, of course, Ty Gibbs, he could win 2-3 more races and be right up there on that end. So could be a two-way, three-way battle for the regular title. So we'll see what happens. But think that I think there's a little bit. We talked about the Cup Series. There's a lot of parity. Well, here it's all kind of grouped together into about 4 or 5 drivers that we think could end up being the champion, or who will comprise the final 4 as we go to Phoenix in November. So I think there's a little bit more quality of competition among this field, even though there's a lot of guys who are also in this contention for the playoffs that probably don't deserve to be in it. But we've got 4 or 5 guys that I think will comprise that as we go to Phoenix.
It's something that we'll find out. I mean, we have plenty of time to see where that goes for who makes it in the Xfinity series. I think Sheldon Creed could sneak in, which would be tough for Ryan Sieg. Not because Sheldon Creed has had this amazing season, but RCR probably wants to get him in there too. They have a big sponsor in Whelen Engineering, and they don't want to miss the playoffs. And they're probably going to put some energy into that here. What is it? Sheldon Creed's good on road courses. The super speedway program has proven with the Austin Hill to be very good. Darlington is a track that Sheldon Creed's done well at over his career. Kansas Speedway's high line on the wall kind of track, which I think suits him too. And then Bristol will be clean versus the dirt race, so we'll see how that works out. But opportunity is there for him. I think outside of Sheldon Creed, there really isn't anybody else that I would think that could go and make the playoff outside of the 12 that are in. No offense to Ryan Sieg or Landing Castle. I mean, Ryan Sieg finished 15th on Saturday. No offense to either of those guys, but I mean, even Daniel Hemrick, the way he's run this year, he's been god awful. I think, and he's very hard on himself. But the performance out of that team outside of Daytona, when he won those stages, they've been terrible. If you told me like, oh, we're only going to take like the top 9 drivers, I mean, Herbst is having a career year, but they're not like, it's not like they're some amazing team. It's just that it's points. He's getting top 10s and whatever. I'm curious about that. I need to go on Racing Reference for that too, where the points are next year, 2022 state, because Racing Reference has been bad. Whoever took it over, they fucked it up. But I mean, when it comes to Daniel Hemrick only has 2 top 5 finishes and 9 top 10s. Same amount of top 10s as Castle and Sieg, and they're all kind of in that realm. Riley Herbst has 14 top 10 finishes and 5 top 5s. So he's not as good as he hasn't as many top 5s as he has around the same. I mean, Bruckshot Jones has been terrible. He has a better average finish than Bruckshot Jones. Starting position, not so much, but Bruckshot won the one race, wherever that was, and then 4 top 5s, 8 top 10s. So that's where Riley Herbst is really making his hay, because he has no playoff points whatsoever. He's 8th in points. That would be an interesting battle if it was, for 8 or 10, those 10 drivers. Landing Castle, Ryan Sieg would have to win, Sheldon Creed, et cetera, et cetera. That would make it more interesting. Bruckshot Jones would be in, even though he's been garbage, but, that's Bruckshot Jones for you. It tells you what buying a ride is worth after spending 18 years in the Xfinity series. But they'll have an off week going in, and then they'll go to Watkins Glen. And we'll preview that at next on episode 129 of the GSP. The IndyCars ran at Nashville, the streets of Nashville. It's a very nice, cool track and rough, very rough, but then it wouldn't be a IndyCar race on a street course without it being really, really rough. Scott Dixon goes and wins the Big Machine Records Music City Grand Prix. That it's just a big situation there. You go and win your 53rd career race, one of the greatest drivers ever. Said it multiple times on this show. But, Scott Dixon pulling that out, the strategy, him and Mike Hull going and making the call there with all the cautions that were going on, to be able to put themselves in that position was huge. And led 15 laps, started 14th, was in trouble. He was gonna, if it wasn't for it being an 80-lap race, it was an 82-lap race, he was going to lose that. It says that he stopped 7. I don't know if that's a real thing on the IndyCar website, that he had 7 pit stops. That seems weird. But then McLaughlin, Palou had 3. Rossi, I get 5 because he had issues. Colton Herta had 4. He had issues. So Dixon, McLaughlin, Alex Palou, Alexander Rossi, Colton Herta are your top 5. Nashville's Josef Newgarden, was not happy, finished 6th. Felix Rosenqvist 7th, Christian Lundgaard 8th after starting 3rd. So the progression and his recent upswing, Christian Lundgaard likely is going to get him Rookie of the Year. Simon Pagenaud finished 9th, and Jack Harvey actually got a top 10 finish. Christ. Jack Harvey got a top 10. Will Power, the points leader, finished 11th. Marcus Ericsson 14th. Those are the top 2 guys leading into the race on Sunday. But Scott Dixon gets the win, Josh. It's crazy. And now Scott Dixon is 6 points behind Will Power to go and possibly get into that historic number of 7 championships, joining you join Schumacher, Hamilton, Petty, Earnhardt,
Jimmy
Thompson. That's like in motorsports, 7 championships is the thing. And of course, Jimmy is Scott Dixon's teammate. But now, with 3 races to go, Scott Dixon, he blew the Indianapolis 500. And I don't know if we talked about it that way, but I kind of had a feeling that after that, he's like, I can't believe I gave away what was like a guarantee. Like, it's guaranteed immortality anyway. If he had won, whether he wins Indy or not, he's going to be one of the greatest ever. He wins Indy, it's just kind of like that validation. Okay, he didn't have to do shit the rest of the year. The reason that Ericsson is in this points battle is because he won Indy, of course. Because I mean, I don't really think about Marcus Ericsson in most of these races. They put themselves in the right place at the right time. But if Scott Dixon wins Indianapolis, I don't know if we're talking about Scott Dixon being in the spot right here. I think that mistake, a rare error by one of the greatest drivers ever lived, by the Iceman, set the tone for what has transpired since then. Qualifying is not good. That's definitely not in his favor this year, or in general. He doesn't qualify well, which is a problem. But I mean, you take into account what Scott Dixon has done this year. I mean, he wins Toronto, gets that big race, and I'm trying to get that. Yeah, I mean, ever since Indianapolis, where he gave away the win, he's finished in the top 10 in every single race. The races at Iowa, he had terrible qualifying, but he finished in the top 5 in both of those. The last 7 races, 3rd, 9th, 5th, 1st, 5th, 4th, 8th, and then that's because I'm going on Racing Reference. Last 8 races in the 1st. And he didn't have a great qualifying run at Nashville either. So the amount of top 5s, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 top 5 finishes, and all in the top 10 since Indianapolis, which, I mean, it's crazy, but it's not crazy because it's Scott Dixon, right? I mean, we have to go there first. He's back in this points battle. He's taken Will Power's balls before, same as Dario Franchitti. And Will Power's been super consistent this year. That was he got into it. He's only won once. That was Detroit this year, but he has 7 podium finishes, and that's a large reason why he's in the points lead. But yesterday was his third finish outside of the top 10 since his Belle Isle victory. If you count Indianapolis as well, it's his fourth finish outside of the top 10. As long as he finishes inside of the top 10, this is crazy. I'm just looking at this now. He's no worse than fourth, which, that's ridiculous consistency. 6.1 average finish for the year, with a 9.1 average start. That's why Will Power is leading the points. He may not have great finishes. Like if something happens, he may not have great finishes. But if he's running good, he's running top 5. It sounds like it's like a Dale Earnhardt special or Jeff Gordon back in the day. That's how they won them championships. They finished top 5 or top 10, top 5s and top 10s. But Scott Dixon's is going to make him sweat. And Marcus Ericsson isn't that far behind either. He's only 12 points behind now. So the point standings, 22 points to Newgarden. Was it 33 to Alex Palou? And for the top 5, so Palou still has a chance to defend his title, even though he doesn't know where he's going to drive next year. Was it 58 points to McLaughlin, 59 to Pato O'Ward, who had issues? That's really where it is. Those 7 guys are still in it with 3 races to go, but Scott Dixon, man, he's a GOAT for a reason.
Yeah, he's definitely the GOAT, and it's an elite group to join with 7 championships, like you mentioned. And who knew that a mistake by the driver at the Indianapolis 500 would lead him to go on a tear? He's like, I got to go out and win this championship. If I can't have 2 Indy 500s, then I'll have 7 championships. Maybe that's what Scott Dixon's viewpoint is. But, on the other hand, talk about Will Power. I mean, Will Power is having his own Scott Dixon-like season. And, in the past, Will Power's lost it and gotten emotional and gotten angry, pissed off, and allowed him to make more mistakes and compound all those mistakes. Well, this year, Will Power has been incredibly consistent, and as a driver, had been very calm, collected, introspective, and hasn't allowed the moments to get too high or too low. And he's been able to keep consistency throughout most of the year, and that's why he's the points leader right now. It took a while for him to get up to the points lead, but now he's the points leader finally. And Marcus Ericsson has been the guy for a bit, but now he's kind of trending downwards, and Will Power, Scott Dixon are on the way up. And I think for Will Power, I mean, this quite a year for him in terms of being able to be consistent, and maybe he'll finally get that second title. He probably should have had like 2 or 3 more, but now getting his second title, or Scott Dixon continue the tear he's on, get his 7th title. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be a battle between 2 of the veterans in this series. 2 that are very good. One's very good at qualifying. Will Power's got a lot of poles in his career, and Scott Dixon maybe not as good, but he knows how to finish races. So it's going to be an interesting battle the rest of the way. Especially Gateway is a pretty interesting oval. The action at that track, especially on restarts and going into turn 1, could be an interesting battle there. And then you have Portland and Laguna Seca, so you have 2 tracks that road courses that I think both drivers are really good at, and we'll see if they can, one of them's going to pull it out. But I think another guy with the bring into the topic of conversation is Josef Newgarden, who I guess talking about Will Power becoming a calm driver, kind of I guess molded into the Penske image of a perfect driver. Josef Newgarden was the Penske perfect guy for many years. Now all of a sudden he's kind of turning into a douchebag here, lately with what he's been doing on the racetrack, and just this race alone, talking about his incident with Romain Grosjean, and then comments afterwards saying, welcome to IndyCar, deal with it, or this is IndyCar, deal with it. And I mean, that's pretty high and mighty to be talking like that. I mean, if Grosjean can't do it, then why should you be able to do that? Pull a move like that in the race and take out another driver. That's not really the way to be doing things. But Josef Newgarden kind of going at it with fans as well on Twitter, which is a pretty interesting exchange there. Kind of, I don't know, turning into modern day Paul Tracy, kind of, sort of, but without the gut, I guess. He's a more fit Paul Tracy, but maybe Paul Tracy from 30 years ago. But that's kind of how I was thinking about it earlier. But Josef Newgarden is also still in the conversation as well. 4 wins on the season, the most in the series, and not as consistent as Scott Dixon or Will Power, but nonetheless still in the conversation. Could very well win at Gateway, and could also win at Portland too. So I think those 3 drivers and Alex Palou and Marcus Ericsson can still have a chance to win the title. So it's not over yet, but I think, like in the other series, like in Xfinity, I think the championship conversations beginning to consolidate into 4 drivers, maybe 5 drivers. I think really it's probably 3 drivers who have a realistic shot at the championship, but we'll see what happens over the next 3 races here. But this was a wild race, and a lot of incidents that happened. Not quite as terrible as last year. Last year we had the restart wrecks, and all the controversies that happened, and from that, because of where they placed the restart, I guess, go wherever where you accelerate to restart the race. They moved that back so that they wouldn't accordion the field coming off the last turn to start the race. So that was a good adjustment by them, but still, this track's very bumpy at Nashville, and still a lot of tight corners, and it definitely leads to mechanical failures, like we saw with like Jimmy Johnson breaking his suspension and spinning out on his own, or the Newgarden and Grosjean incident, or even Graham Rahal and Pato O'Ward making contact and taking themselves both out of the race here. So this Nashville race was very tough on the cars, and it showed with all the cautions, but it was still a pretty good race to watch.
Yeah, the whole Josef Newgarden turning into like PT 2.0, I guess he's just really frustrated at the moment. I'd go and say, when you're driving for Team Penske and you're essentially their future, because McLaughlin and him are similar age range, I think. I'm trying to see his bio. Their bio on here doesn't say anything, of course. Yeah, it's great. So I was trying to make a point there about, Newgarden and McLaughlin are the future of the team. Powers, generally getting long in the tooth, and he's also a dick. So that kind of is a thing. He's still in this points battle right now. 32 points out with 3 races to go. Gateway is one of his best race tracks. And then the last 2 races, the West Coast swing to end the season, is really a free for all, because they'll have a week off after Gateway, and then they'll have have back-to-back races at Portland and at Laguna Seca, and to determine the champion there and this year in the IndyCars. But there's now it's really a 4-horse race amongst those guys. I guess 5 really, with Alex Palou still in there. You can add, I mean, there's 7 drivers that are still really in it because if it's 100 points, you're really out. But I look at, the 2 Penske guys and the 2 Ganassi guys. I guess you can really, it's always, you can't go wrong going Penske versus Ganassi. That's what it is here. It's where this championship's going to get determined. The Andretti Autosport team's too inconsistent. They make too many mistakes. The McLaren team, same kind of deal. Have pace, but they're not consistent. It's why they are where they are, even though they have great drivers. Award and Rossi, Rosenquist is 9th, Colton Hurd is 10th. So those guys are right there. Arenas VK announced a long-term extension with Ed Carpenter Racing, so that's a big get by Ed Carpenter to keep Arenas VK. I think that's because, for whatever reason, Chip Ganassi didn't want to pay him. But then that's not shocking. Chip Ganassi has never been known for paying drivers. If to go and replace Alex Palou, who's still in limbo and litigation in regards to who he's going to drive for and what he's going to be driving next year. That's its own little question mark that we have there. But we'll get into it more next week on the GSP when we preview the race at Gateway. IMSA ran at Road America for the Fastlane Sports Car Weekend at Road America. You got, I'll close this over here. And then trying to get the results from the event. Saw Philippe Albuquerque and Ricky Taylor get the victory over the Ganassi Cadillac teammates, Alex Lynn, Earl Bamber in the 02 car, Earl Bamba, and then Sebastian Bourdais, Renger van der Zande. They've made Renger Vander into one name. That's cool. The points leaders coming in were Oliver Jarvis, Tom Blomqvist for Meyer Shank Racing Acura. They crashed late in the race and ended up finishing 4th because of the cleanup time was too long for them to actually get back under green. Ryan, the LMP2 class actually finished on the same lap as the DPIs, which is interesting. Doesn't happen all that often. I guess it's because it's a sprint race at Road America. Ryan DL, Dwight Merriman for Era Motorsport win in LMP2. All the LMP2 cars are the Oricas. They beat Louis Delatraz, John Ferrano in the 8 car, and then Fabio Scheer, Dennis Anderson, the 20. I'm forgetting their teams or whatever, but that's that. Felipe Fraga, Gar Robinson for Riley Motorsports wins LMP3 over Matt Bell, Orly Fidani, AWA. There was a car 90 that was Duquesne. Yeah, that's what that is. It was an interesting chassis. Colin Braun, John Bennett for Core Autosport round out the podium in LMP3. So those were 13th through 15th. The LMP2s were 7th through 9th. And then I'm trying, what is it? 6. So the PR1 Matheson cars started ahead of them, but they had issues there. In GT Pro, Jack Hawksworth, Ben Barnicoat for Vassar Sullivan Lexus wins over the Pfaff Porsche, Matt Campbell, Matthew Jaminet, and Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor round out the podium in the Corvette. In GTD, Windward Racing Mercedes gets the victory. Philip Ellis, Russell Ward over Jeff Westphal, Robert McGinnis, the Carbon, with Peregrine Racing Lamborghini, and Aaron Telitz, Frankie Montecalvo, and the Vassar Sullivan Lexus round out the podium there. Only four. That's the thing. GT Daytona actually got lapped only 4 times, and GT Pro 3 times. So shows. I mean, I think part of it was because of the weather. The rain played a big part in that, and it was in changing conditions, which affected things. They didn't update. It doesn't look like they updated the standings because they didn't put in. That's for. I want to see this. They didn't put in Road America. Yeah. So the IMSA hasn't even put in the Road America results. Ricky Taylor and Philippe Albuquerque have a 19-point lead going into the last race of the year at Petit Le Mans. Yeah, so I can't even do anything with that. That's great. Last season, trying to look for the schedule. Can't do anything with that. That's great. Class. This website blows. I've said it on this show. I think I have said it on this show. I'm pretty sure the IMSA website is trash, but then they're a NASCAR entity, so it makes sense that it's terrible. The schedule, okay. There you go. Finally got it. The next race, they run at the end of September, so they essentially have 6 weeks off. The prototypes have 6 weeks off before they run their season finale. The Michelin GT Challenge at VIR will see the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series GT classes race. GTD Pro, GTD. There'll be LMP3 for the prototype challenge and all. So the prototypes will be off for essentially 6 weeks. So there'll be a lot of testing going on. Probably some deals being made in regards to the GTP category. And we'll see what comes of that. Hopefully I can get some points. The points will be, I'll be able to have the points by the time they run again for sure. Late September, which is retarded how they have that set up. The MotoGP British Grand Prix sees Fabio Quartararo. He still has the points lead, but it's kind of tenuous. They're trying to sell it as tenuous after winning two of the last 3 races before the summer break and 3 races total, along with 4 podiums out of 5, an 8th place finish at the British Grand Prix. Aleix Espargaro has a huge wreck in qualifying, gets hurt, but is still in the points battle. He's 22 points behind Fabio Quartararo. Pecco Bagnaia gets the victory. Nea Bastianini finishes 4th. So the Ducatis, essentially for Pecco Bagnaia, he's won 4 races this year, has 2 fifths, and then otherwise there's not a whole lot of anything. So if Pecco Bagnaia can get on a run, it could be really, really dangerous for the field here. For the points, there's still, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 races to go in the championship. They'll run in a couple weeks' time. So we'll preview the Austrian Grand Prix next week. Then there'll be 4 races in the month of September. San Marino Grand Prix. So I guess it's Mugello or something. I don't know. Or whatever that's saying. Yeah. Aragon. Then the Japanese Grand Prix at Twin Ring Motegi, and then Thailand. So busy month of September is going to play a big part in regards to what happens in that championship. The top 9 were only separated by less than 4 seconds, so that's pretty crazy. Pecco Bagnaia, Maverick Vinales, Jack Miller, Enea Bastianini, Jorge Martin. So 4 Ducatis in the top 5. Miguel Oliveira on a KTM in 6th, Alex Rins in 7th on a Suzuki. Quartararo, Ali Espargaro, so the points guys 8th and 9th, and Marco Bezzecchi finished 10th. You're trying to go. The first Honda was 14th, Pol Espargaro, and the last point was scored by Franco Morbidelli on the other factory, Yamaha. That's where the points are at. It's interesting to see how that goes. The Ducatis are definitely really fast, and they have a lot of them out there. Can Bagnaia or Enea Bastianini, who have both seemingly been the most prolific in regards to winning this year. Bastianini has 3 wins this year. Quartararo has 3 wins. Bagnaia has 4. So those are the 3 guys. Ali Espargaro has just scored points in every round, and that's how he's in this mix. Johan Zarco qualified on pole, but didn't score points yesterday, unfortunately for him. The points battle between Bagnaia, there's 24 points between Bagnaia and Miller from 3rd to 6th. So the 2 factory Ducati guys, and then 2 satellite riders. Then you have Brad Binder, Alex Rins, Maverick Vinales in the last 2 races has finished 3rd and 2nd. So he's getting a hold of that Aprilia and figuring it out. So moving himself into a position. There's Rins, Vinales, Oliveira, and Jorge Martin separated by 3 points. Joan Mir 7 points back behind of Rins. So from 8th to 12th is only separated by 7 points. Going into the next race, which will be the Austrian Grand Prix. In Moto 2, as I mentioned earlier, the Americans struggled there at the British Grand Prix. Augusto Fernandez gets the victory over Alonso Lopez, Jake Dixon, Ayagura, and Aaron Canet. Celestino Vietti finished 6th, Joe Roberts 9th, Jorge Navarro 10th, Philip Selak and Bo Bendisneier round out your top 10. The standings going into the Austrian Grand Prix for them. Augusto Fernandez coming off of his 3 wins in a row for him, and 4 wins out of the last 5 races, has taken the points lead. He is 13 points ahead of Agura, 15 points ahead of Celestino Vietti, who had started the year with 2 wins and a second. He has 3 wins and 2 seconds overall. So that's the battle right there. Ayagura has 1 win and has scored points in most of the races. It is 5 podium finishes so far this year. So that's the battle for Moto 2 supremacy. Ayagura might be getting a call up to MotoGP no matter what he does here the rest of the season. Joe Roberts is 6th in points, 2 points behind Tony Arbolino. He won. He's won one race. He has 2 podium finishes so far this year. Trying to move himself up, getting to that top 5. What's it called? Cameron Beaubier crashed out of the race on Sunday, 17th in points. Still, has an outside shot of moving himself up a little bit, getting himself inside the top 15 pretty good. He's 35 points out of 9th. So he could put something together and maybe have a chance. But it'll take some work. Sean Dillon Kelly finished the race but didn't score points. But he's on a learning year. Going into the race, the Seoul E-Prix, going into that doubleheader, Bird out for Seoul Formula E finale. That's not good. Norman Nato for Sam Bird is unable to compete. Broken hand. Wow. That's not good. So Norman Nato, 18th drive. So interesting mid-season driving change and driving style this season. All right, so sucks for Sam Bird. He's Ferrari factory driver too. So that's part of that's a brutal way to end his season. The last 2 races of the championship this coming weekend. Stoffel Van Dorn has a 36-point lead on Mitch Evans, who is the teammate of Sam Bird at Jaguar. Eduardo Mortara, 41 points back in 3rd. Jean-Eric Verne, but they think you need 50 points. So Jean-Eric Verne has no chance. Former multiple champion of Formula E. He's in 4th. Antonio Felix da Costa 5th. Luca de Grassi 6th. Robin Freins, Nick DeVries, the defending world champion 8th. Jake Dennis for Andretti in 9th. Those are the guys that have really scored a lot of points. The Porsche duo of Verline and Lauderer struggled this year. They got a 1-2, and I think it looks like Portugal, and then haven't had much to show for it ever since. So we'll see what happens. Ken Stoffel Van Dorn, the former Formula 2 champion, a former McLaren Formula 1 driver, in the last race for the Mercedes Formula E team, get a second consecutive Formula E championship for them. Won one race this year, has been uber consistent. He's finished on the podium 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times in top 5 finishes. Ten times in however many races here for 10 out of the last 12 races in the top 5. So that's a way to go and get yourself in there. And I don't know what. Oh, so the poster just fell off. Okay, lovely. I was wondering what that sound was. But lovely. So I have to take that down, damn thing. NHRA will be running at Topeka this coming weekend, coming off the Western Swing. And they're getting close to their playoff, which will start after Indianapolis, or at Indianapolis, actually. They're, what is it? Yeah, Clinch County, yeah. Brittany Force going in is on the Top Fuel. She's clinched a countdown berth already and leads the points in Top Fuel by 75 points over Mike Salinas, who essentially by showing up and making a run this weekend on Friday will lock himself into the playoff. The interesting battle is right there on the cutoff line. I mean, they have a top 10 cutoff line, but if you show up to every race and you make 2 qualifying runs, you're eligible for the playoffs. So Tony Schumacher won the last race at Seattle. He's 10 points behind Clay Millican. Austin Prock is within that realm. Doug Coletta's there. Antron Brown is outside of the points. He's way back. He's 82 points out of the top 10. But those guys are all probably going to make the cutoff or make the playoff. 3 drivers have already locked into the funny car countdown with Robert Hight, who leads Matt Hagan by 228 points, so he's going to win the regular season more than likely too. Ron Capps is in third. 3 different manufacturers, Chevy, Dodge, and Toyota there. John Force, once he makes a run, is going to be in as well. The points battle there, 17 points between Jim Campbell and Chad Green for the cutoff. Blake Alexander is 25 points out of the top 10. So that's the battle there. I think all those guys would make the playoffs. There'd be 12 drivers in that field as well. Erica Enders and Aaron Stanfield are locked in. Eric Enders is probably going to win the regular season, so she'll get extra bonus points. Outside of that, I mean, you're looking at it's an all Chevy deal there. The cutoff is actually a little interesting. The Quadra family, Christian Quadra and Fernando Quadra Jr. are both in play. I mean, Fernando Quadra Jr. and Derek Kramer are 4 points behind Bo Butner. And then Christian Quadra's, 41 points behind Bo Butner. So those are the drivers that I think could make the playoff there in the pro stock battle. I mean, it's really Eric Enders versus Aaron Stanfield, who I think both of them are elite. I mean, of course, Eric Enders is a lead performance driver, but I think Aaron Stanfield's also supported by elite performance, so that's interesting. Kyle Koretsky, Greg Anderson, and Dallas Glenn are right behind them. Those are the KB Racing trio. Troy Coughlin Jr., who won recently. He's a elite car. Camry Caruso is somebody who's not in that realm, I don't think. So it's nice to actually see somebody that isn't connected to one of those 2 teams running up there. Pro stock motorcycle, there's still a lot of time to go. Points battle's very close. 5 riders within 70 points. Angelle Sampey, who just celebrated her birthday, so happy birthday to Angelle. 2 points ahead of Joey Gladstone, 12 ahead of Steve Johnson, Matt Smith, and then Eddie Krawick are your top 5. There's 25 points between Jimmy Onderdahl and Ryan Ayler. You have Kelly Klontz, Chris Bostic, Gianna Salinas, or I think she changed her government because she just got married recently. So we'll see what happens with that. There's still a few races to go before their playoff. I mean, obviously, it's like 2 races to go before the playoff starts for them. So that'll be something. We'll see what happens with the NHRA. You have Heartland Park, Topeka this weekend, where they used to run NASCAR trucks, run the SCCA Nationals. That's where Jim Epler ran 300 miles an hour in a funny car. First funny car, 300 mile an hour run was there at Heartland Park. And then they'll run the following week at Brainerd before they take a week off, or they take a week, a little over a couple weeks off before the U.S. Nationals. And then the playoffs, or that's where the playoffs start. So that's where we'll see the NHRA going. Let's get into Richmond, Josh. Let's start with trucks in regards to their situation. They had a playoff race at Indianapolis Raceway Park a couple weeks ago, which saw Grant Enfinger get the win at IRP T Sport 200, whatever the hell T Sport is. It's Door Sport something or another. 42 trucks for 36 spots. You have Brennan Poole running for the G2G team, which is a joke. You have some people that have not shown up. Generally, there's a couple unfamiliar names there. Jake Garcia is driving a second McAnally truck there. You have Joey Gase actually driving for Tyler Young's team. Trey Hutchins coming in. Some other people I've never even seen before. Chad Chastain, the brother of Ross, I assume.
Yeah, that's his brother.
Lane Riggs, the son of Scott Riggs, is back in the 62 truck this coming weekend, trying to qualify on time. But you have Brett Holmes there for his own team with Shane Huffman as his crew chief. Austin Wayne Self actually driving again, which is unfortunate. They have had better drivers in those trucks when he wasn't driving. Taylor Gray coming off of one of his best runs of his career and having the momentum with the ARCA series and the wins he's been having recently. Had a chance at IRP, got wrecked by John Hunter Nemechek. Norm Benning's actually showing up to fail to qualify, I guess. Roger Cruth and Spire, number 7. But getting into the points, the driver points at the moment, Grant Enfinger has the win going into this round, so he's already locked in. He doesn't have to worry about anything. Zane Smith still has a points lead over Ben Rhodes by 14 points. Enfinger is third, tied with Stuart Friesen. And John Hunter Nemechek fifth, tied with his teammate Chandler Smith, 26 points behind. Ty Majeski and Carson Hocevar is on the cutoff. He is 7 points ahead of Door Sport teammates Matt Crafton and Christian Eckes. So running at Richmond International Raceway on Saturday night for the second race of the Truck Series playoffs. Josh, what are you looking at, and who are you looking at to win and get a wild card? Since you were pretty good on your picks a couple weeks ago, mentioned that on the show last week. Your picks were way better than mine, but that's not shocking. But you had better picks there, so let's see who you're picking.
Yeah, of course. I think, first of all, looking at this this race, it's only the second time we've been back to Richmond since they started, going back to Richmond a couple years ago in the Truck Series. So there's not really a whole lot of history here, but I think, looking at how the series has raced so far this year, I think you'll see Zane Smith up front. I think John Hunter Nemechek won this race last year in the Ford truck, and then he also finished in second in the Xfinity race back in finished back in the Xfinity race back in the spring. Went back to the back into the Xfinity race, and then finished back in second in the Xfinity race in the spring. But it's gonna be interesting to see how he can race this year, especially not really being in the contention as he has been so far this series, fifth in the standings. So not really as solid as he was last year, but it's been interesting year for John Hunter Nemechek, and I think his biggest contender this year has been Zane Smith. So I think Zane Smith has got 7 stage wins on the year, and John Hunter has only gotten 4. So he's been up front a whole lot more often, and it reflects itself in the number of race wins that he's had as well. So I think Zane Smith probably is going to be the guy this weekend, make his way into the next round, into the round of 8, secure a spot there. I think John Hunter, will still do well, but it's going to be a tough deal between him and Zane Smith. I think also you should look out for Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes has been a guy that hasn't really won a whole lot. He's only had 1 win this year, but he's had 8 stage wins, so he could be a guy that we look out and see for stage victory here in the Truck Series here on Friday night. But I'm gonna pick Zane Smith to win this race, and then think wild card. We'll go with Rajah Caruth in the number 7 Spire Motorsports. That's been a solid truck this year. Rajah's coming up still. He's still trying to develop his talent, but I'd like to see what he can do. And it should be an interesting race here on Friday night for the Truck Series. So, or Saturday for Truck Series. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you think, Phil, and we'll see what you have to say about this race on Friday.
Yeah, I was going to pick Raja as my wild card, so you swept in and did that. So I have to actually go and pick somebody else there. You talked about Zane Smith and John Hunter. John Hunter he really does need a win. He hasn't been the same guy. I mean, I think also the notion of being the designated sub and then getting bumped by Ty Gibbs, I think, has played a part in why John Hunter's, performance has dropped off. I think when you lose the opportunity to be in a big-time Cup car he was in a front row motorsports car for a whole year, but you're going to be in the 45 car, and then, oh yeah, we're going to go and put Ty in instead of you. That might be playing a part in why he's had this drop off and lack of performance. But then you add the notion of how he drives guys. He's kind of like Ross Chastain in that way. You pick Zane Smith for Saturday's race. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna go and say Ty Majeski gets his first career victory on Saturday night. He's a short track ace, super late model guy. Won a lot of the biggest races in that realm. He's had good qualifying pace. I think it's going to be a race where track position will play a role. Sport has made some improvements. Ben Rhodes, of course, is the defending series champion. He's up there. He has all those stage wins. But I think Ty Majeski is somebody, in the similar thing as Grant Enfinger. If he can get that win, give himself that momentum and build something for the rest of this playoff, that would be something for sure. My wild card pick for this race, I mean, you got Taylor Gray, who has run 5 races and doesn't say anything over there, but that's who I'm going to pick as my wild card. I'm going to pick Taylor Gray as, which is crazy since his crew chief is Chad Johnston. And it always seemed like this is a day. Like I'm going off on John Klossmeyer, who's the crew chief of the 14 car, and then Chad Johnston, who used to be the crew chief of the 14 car when Tony's career went down the toilet. And I'm picking Taylor Gray. But he can fade the mediocrity because that truck is good. They had a chance at IRP, as I said. Wouldn't be shocking if he goes and gets that victory, in my mind, because of the pace he's had, because of his experience, because of what he's doing in ARCA on short tracks. I think it wouldn't be shocking. And then they have a lot of data, Ford data there, Xfinity Trucks Cup to go and make that happen. So I'm saying Taylor Gray gets a first. So I'm picking 2 guys possibly to get their first career win. That's what I'm saying on Saturday night. I'll go again with you, Josh, first in the Cup Series of Federated Auto Parts 400 at Richmond, which will be on Sunday afternoon on NBC. Only 36 cars, so all the chartered cars only. And Gagson will be in the 16. JJ Ailey, after wrecking 10 cars yesterday at Michigan, will be back in the 15. Landon Castle will be in the 77 for Spire. Those are the changes. Otherwise, everybody else, it's the usual suspects there. Go back to Richmond earlier this year, just as an example, or just as, going back to that, William Byron got his, second win of the year at that point, and that was in April, early April, and you can see how bad it's gone ever since. Blue Emu, or no, that's Martinsville, my fault. Richmond was Denny Hamlin. That was his first win of the season, and then he won the 600 because Briscoe spun out. That I forgot about that. Briscoe spun out trying to pass Kyle Larson.
Well, Austin Dillon caused a big accident too, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll add that too. But Denny Hamlin wins over Kevin Harvick, William Byron, Martin Truex, and Kyle Larson. Christopher Bell 6th, Ryan Blaney 7th, Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch, and Austin Dillon. So a bunch of Toyotas there. What is it? 4 Toyotas in the top 9. You had Hendrick cars as well, and Byron and Larson and Bowman. So 3 Hendrick cars. And of course, Kevin Harvick coming off a victory. Chase Briscoe actually finished 11th after starting 4th. So there is hope there. I guess I no sold him, but started fourth, finished 11th, which is pretty bad. Kevin Harvick finished second in that race. So coming off a victory at one of his best racetracks. Uh, looking at some of these guys, I mean, you got Blaney got a top 10, started on pole. Truex started sixth, finished fourth. Those are the two guys that are on that cutoff. You look at people that need a win. Austin Dillon finished 10th in that race. Briscoe, of course, he needs a win to really solidify himself. He finished 11th. Clyde only finished 14th in that race. That was earlier in the year. Buescher had a top 15. Chastain didn't have a great day. I'm trying to go through some of these other people. Bubba had he only finished 26th. Kurt Busch was the last car running, but he was 109 laps down. So issues for him there at Richmond the last time they ran. Castle and Yaley were in there and they sucked. And one of the worst finishes for McDowell this year, 30th. So something to see, Josh. What should we look for? Is it going to be similar? Is it going to be Hendrick and Gibbs again? Or now that Kevin Harvick has this win, can he go and take that momentum and possibly carry that to a second consecutive win and kind of drive the Ford brigade back into this discussion for who has a chance to win this championship in 2022?
Well, I think you got to go back to, like you said, you got to go back to this race back in the spring, and Denny Hamlin kind of executed his strategy perfectly, but he wasn't the one that was up there for the whole race. I think Martin Truex and Ryan Truex, or not Ryan Truex, but Ryan Blaney, were both up there in that race in the spring. Blaney led 128 laps, and then Truex led 80 laps there in that race. So, when you consider their performances back in the spring, I think you got to look at those two guys as the guys to beat at this racetrack here this weekend. And I think, if either of those guys win, then yeah, it's going to bring the field to 16 drivers. And then, of course, Watkins Glen and Daytona coming up, that's going to really throw things for a loop if we get a new winner there. So I think you look at Truex. I think he's been good at this racetrack historically. He had a win here a couple years ago. He's been pretty good in terms of leading laps here as well. So I definitely think he should be up front in this race here. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the number 19 in Truex. Yeah, I think Ryan Blaney, he'll lead laps, but I'm not sure if he'll be up there for the win. I think this is it's a Toyota racetrack. I think of course with the owners, Toyota owners 400 in the spring, and then Toyota's got a heavy sponsorship stake in the racetrack as well. So Martin Truex, the pick there. Think for the wild card. We'll go with. I mean, I'm trying to base this off of the results from the spring, kind of, or have with reference to that. But looking at this, I mean, a lot of the wild cards here have already that I would have picked back in the spring have already won now. But let's go with Eric Jones. I think he had a good car back in the spring. Caught up in a caution in back in the spring, caused him to finish 25th. But he had a fast car in qualifying. Remember, he qualified in 5th place. So I think if Eric Jones with the way he's running right now, he's 14th in points, and he's been solid at a lot of these races, but hasn't been able to this season, but hasn't been able to put it all together. So I think he could be a guy that could be in contention if things go right with him. So we'll see how he's able to do that in the number 43 car. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking this weekend for Richmond.
That'll be something if Eric Jones can get that win. It would be timely. He's picked big races to win. He's won the Coke Zero 400 and the Southern 500. Those are his two career uh, season victories. He also won the Busch Clash a couple of years ago with the destroyed race car. So 3 times he's won in the Cup Series, and all of them are big races. So this would be a big win if he could go and win for Mr. The King and Maury Gallagher and get them in the playoffs. But also you pick Martin Truex Jr. So I'm going to go and play off that. You talked about MTJ and Ryan Blaney. I was about to do the same thing. Call him Ryan Truex. Ryan Blaney qualified on pole and led the most laps. The pit strategy didn't work out so well for him. Earlier this year, him and Jonathan Hassler are figuring things out. He knows that he needs to win. Don't leave it up to trying to make it happen at a road course. Don't try to leave it up to, because Watkins Glen can become a destruction derby, just like most road courses seem to do in NASCAR. And then Daytona is Daytona. You don't want to have to be in a position there. I'm picking Ryan Blaney to win on Sunday afternoon at Richmond. Former guest Phil Spain and his girlfriend will be fellow Bubba fan will be there. Sarah Davis, I think is her name. They'll be at Richmond together. So tweeting. So if you want to follow them, they'll be there. I'm picking Ryan Blaney to win this race. My wild card's Brad Keselowski. So it sounds like my old fandom coming in. Brad Keselowski actually finished 13th in that race. And he was. It seems like he was actually in the mix. Trying to go back. I'll go back to the schedule or the results this year. It was only the 7th race of the season too, so the starting lineup, you had Blaney and Byron, Kyle Busch and Chase Briscoe. Eric Jones started 5th, and Martin Truex started 6th. Brad Keselowski started 19th in that race, and he got stage points in both stages. So it would be a wild card. He had that 100-point penalty early in the season for unapproved, adjustments and stuff to the car or whatever infractions with the car there. So if he was to go and get that win, it would really flip everything on its lid. Blaney and Truex would have to win the next 2 races to bump him off, and that would give a cushion to the likes of Kurt Busch and Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric. But I mean, the 6 car has definitely not been as good as Chris Buescher has for the majority of the year. But Brad wants to carry his weight and not make it look like he's been garbage most of the year, even though essentially he has been. So those are my picks. I pick Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski. I'll go and type those in. YRB wildcard Baba Booey. So those are picks for this week for the Cup Series at Richmond and the trucks.
Yeah, I was thinking about Brad for picks as a wild card, but decided to go with Eric Jones. But that's a good pick there for you as a wild card.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know for sure. I do think that one of those 2 points guys is going to win. I think both of them are going to win. We're in a position where they're going to angle for it. So the 17 winners now is going to happen because Kevin Harvick won. That's where this is all going to get really crazy, and Daytona is going to be ridiculous. People trying to go for stage points and all that, for sure. So yeah, Tony Baselli goes into the Hall of Fame for the Jacksonville Jaguars, representing that organization. First player ever to get in for that team, and the first ever pick they had. He was a great player for them, but once he left Jacksonville, his injuries became an issue, and he wasn't able to really finish out the career the way he wanted to. But he was one of the best left tackles in the game. Got honored in Canton this past weekend, amongst many other great players in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, so there's a. I know I mentioned. Class of 22 picks 10 who belong. What the heck? Probably, yeah. So it was Tony Baselli, Leroy Butler, Richard Seymour, Dick Vermeil, and Brian Young. All of them were, and then they're talking about people who belong. And John McVeigh, so Sean McVeigh's dad, understate leader and Super Bowls, under different dials. Yeah, John McVeigh. Yeah, that's a good one. Then you have Fred Taylor. Okay, so Roger Craig, people that should be Marty Schottenheimer, Mike Holmgren, London Fletcher, Sterling Sharp, Lee Remmel, never. George Seifert, I'm not really sure about that, but he won 2 Super Bowls. Torrey Holt definitely does, and then Tom Coughlin, which would be another one for you, Josh, because he was the original coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then he won 2 Super Bowls with the New York Giants, and that would be a big one. Sam Mills, London Fletcher, that's a good one. Marty Schottenheimer and Mike Holmgren, those are great. Yeah, Roger Craig should be in, but then Fred Taylor when he was
deserves to be in.
Yeah, Fred Taylor was a great running back. I remember playing fantasy football years back and always wanting to get Fred Taylor or Mark Brunell or whatever, because you guys had that great offense, Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell. I always remember Jacksonville in the early days. That was one of the best offenses in the NFL, and of course you had a coach that wasn't an offensive coach, but you had a great offense. So, I mean, big weekend. Tony Baselli gets in, struggle in that preseason opener, but no massive injuries, right? You're still in play as you go into this week 2 for you guys and the Las Vegas Raiders. They'll get extra time. You guys will get extra time off before the season opener because you're doing the Hall of Fame game and you opened your training camp earlier.
Yeah, it's true. And on the Hall of Fame bit, Tony Baselli, he been waiting for years for him to be in the Hall of Fame. I think he had proven in his career that he was Hall of Fame left tackle. Of course, his biggest moment was blocking Bruce Smith in the '96 playoffs against the Bills. And of course, in his playoff or his Hall of Fame introduction, when they selected him, Bruce Smith announced his nomination, and showed the respect and the talent that Tony Baselli had, and should have had a longer career in Jacksonville, and then shoulder injuries that kind of built up over time. And I think the story is that he had a botched shoulder surgery in 2001, and was never really ready to play and never suited up that season. And I think the Jaguars, they worked out a deal or something where they kind of released him as damaged goods, and the Houston Texans went and picked him up. Of course, never played a game for them and retired after that. But finally he's in the Hall of Fame. We got a Jaguars player in the Hall of Fame, so real happy to see that. And then of course the turnout for the Jacksonville Jaguars fans. I think they had probably the biggest presence. Seemed like it from what I can tell. They had the biggest presence at Canton, where they had the Hall of Fame induction and everything. So it was good to see that. Then of course it paves the way for other Jaguars players to get in, like Fred Taylor, who he had a career average of 4.6 yards a carry in the NFL, and still one of the highest career averages per carry in the NFL. And I think that's only second to Barry Sanders. And he's in the Hall of Fame right now, and Fred should have been in the Hall of Fame, or should be in the Hall of Fame too. Didn't get enough recognition in his career. It was back when the media didn't really have a whole lot of presence in Jacksonville, or didn't really pay attention to them too much. But he was one of the guys, and Fred had that 90-yard touchdown run in the 2000 or the 1999 playoffs against the Miami Dolphins, and he had that run, and that's the longest run in NFL playoff history, and hasn't been broken ever since then. And not sure if we'll ever see it again. Sure, somebody's going to break it at this point. The fact that it's stayed around that long for 20 years shows how good he was, and shows the type of player he was, being able to do a jump cut and on a draw play, and then take it the distance. And then Jimmy Smith, who's also somebody that should be in the Hall of Fame too. He if Fred Taylor had a 4.3 on that play, 40-yard dash speed, then Jimmy Smith must have had like a 3.1, because he was coming, and he sprinted all the way down the field to get the last block for Fred Taylor to score that touchdown. And Jimmy Smith should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he has the statistics, and if you really watched the Jaguars in the '90s, and you saw that he was able to put up all those numbers, and the talent that he had. So I think they should be the next two players to get into the Hall of Fame for the NFL. Hopefully sooner than later, so we don't have to wait too long. But they both deserving players, all of them deserving players to be in the Hall of Fame, and finally happy to have one of our guys. And for me, this was before my time. Tony Baselli, Fred Taylor, well, part of Fred Taylor's career, his first part of his career, and Jimmy Smith, that was all before my time, because I didn't really start being a Jaguars fan until like 2003, 2004. But before that, would have liked to have been a fan in the '90s, but I was a little bit too young for that there. But then the Hall of Fame game that preceded the ceremonies, not really too much to worry about. I think the big thing to take away from that is Trayvon Walker. He's shown why he's the number one pick. Had first play, stormed right by the left tackle, and was able to hit the quarterback on the first play. Caused a penalty, but it's one of those BS penalties there. So I think Trayvon Walker should be a guy to look out for, proving that he is why they picked him number one. The Trent Baalke masterclass, at least on that pick, seemingly looking like it's a good deal. So we'll see how they play out the rest of the preseason, and as they open the regular season week 1 in Washington. So should be exciting. Not too worried about it, unlike last year where the all the starters were playing against the Browns backups for the most part, and they were playing poorly, and showed you how poor they were coaching wise. But the backups against the Raiders backups, not really too much to worry about there. So we'll see how the starters do this Friday against the Browns. So excited to see the rest of the players, Trevor Lawrence and all the other guys, Christian Kirk, make their preseason debut Friday night here. So and one note on the Raiders, I will say, is that Josh Jacob played snaps in the Hall of Fame game, which is unusual and could be on the trading block for some other teams. So we'll see what Josh McDaniels, as the coach GM, wants to do. But that was a little bit unusual, seeing credible starter like Josh Jacobs taking multiple serious snaps for the Raiders on last Thursday night. But yeah, it should be an interesting preseason, and then lead up into the fantasy draft. Assuming that's going to be later this month, if not at the very beginning of next month. So looking forward to all of that later.
Yeah, well, our fantasy draft is as of now on the 21st, unless we have enough people that want to change it. That's what I put it on as. We'll have a Zoom call and the whole thing, so people can
All
be
right,
on
looking
that.
forward to
We'll
it.
talk about that. For Josh has been second the last 2 years in this league, the Fall Brawl League.
I think
I have to
second and
change
third,
my
right?
second. I figured it was second both years, but I think second and third is right. I need to get myself back up there, keep my championship belt, because Joe's never going to get it because he has 2 young kids. Vic didn't bother to take it because he's moving, but because Vic has no life outside of being outside of fantasy football and his work and whatever, and is married, but he didn't bother to take it. Maybe Josh can have it, and I'll actually send it down to you. Um, I'm hoping not to. I want to keep it, and I want to have it on the show and be able to hold it up on here. But Niners will be playing this weekend, of course, to start their 2022 season. The training camp so far has been pretty beneficial for them, and Trey Lance has gotten a lot of good reps against the defense, the improved defense, which is crazy to think considering how good it was last year. Shavarius Ward has come in and been a great addition there. Or Travarius Ward, whatever. Travarius. Sorry, it's late. Big free agent signing there. 49ers have a lot of momentum here. They are one of the preseason 2022. Yeah, they're one of the big picks in regards to the season for who would have a chance to go and make it to Arizona, Glendale for the Super Bowl. I think that would be it would be huge. Niners have made the Super Bowl a couple times in my lifetime recently and not been able to pull it off. If they were able to do it, would be great. Giants and Patriots will be on NFL Network and then on local for me here in the Metro New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. And then Titans and Ravens will also be playing on Thursday. 4 games on Friday. Falcons and Lions, which will be on NFL Network. Jaguars will play the Browns on Friday night. Bengals and Cardinals, and then Jets and Eagles Friday night. And then the Niners will open up against the Packers on NFL Network. The timing doesn't seem to work out that way, but whatever. Niners will be at home to open their preseason against Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, who does the ayahuasca to go and get himself into a Zen place. Tells you what you need to do after you go and fuck Danica Patrick. To go and forget that, you have to go and do the ayahuasca. Saturday is a busy slate. What is it? 8-game slate. 4 games will be on the NFL Network there. And Sunday we'll see the Raiders come back playing against the Vikings. They'll be at home in Allegiant Stadium there. So we'll get some. We'll talk about the results there next week on the show. Probably get into a little fantasy talk more because the draft will be upcoming at that point the following week, that following Sunday, and then we'll give you a review on episode 130 of the GSP. What comes of that there with the draft. I have to go and do some work and prep, amongst other things I have to do there. But, when it comes to, I'll bring up this thing. I'm talking about the Hall of Famers. 3 people that are going to be on the ballot next year for the first time are Darrelle Revis, Dwight Freeney, Joe Thomas. Those 3 guys are first ballot Hall of Famers. I'm pretty sure those are going to be modern era guys that get in, especially Darrelle Revis. I mean, I'm pretty sure both Darrelle Revis and Dwight Freeney get in. I don't know how Zach Thomas isn't in the Hall of Fame, but it's kind of tells you where, I don't know how they do the modern era and how they go and come up with that. Zach Thomas, I remember him going back years and years ago. I always remember him as one of the best linebackers in the game, undersized linebacker, great motor, played the game the right way. Miami Dolphins, him and Jason Taylor were the Miami Dolphins leadership and defense for years. It amazes me that he isn't in, but then Bryant Young had to wait many years before he got his call. So I guess that's how the NFL, the Pro Football Hall of Fame works in that sense. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm curious to see what the Niners bring to the table. Of course, they beat Green Bay in January in the playoffs in a big spot there and got to the NFC Championship game with Jimmy G as their quarterback. Trey Lance gets a shot. They're probably only going to play a series, so hopefully they can go and move the ball. Him and Brandon Ayuk are simpatico. They're making big plays together. GK is bound to have a breakout like he had a few years ago when he was an all-pro. And then Debo is getting back into a shape because he wasn't really putting in the full energy there. Defense is on point in all areas. Secondary is what I'm looking forward to the most, to see what they do against Green Bay. Try to get some turnovers. Try to go and force Ron out on his one drive that he's probably going to have. And then go from there. But we'll talk about it next week on the GSP. Josh, I know you haven't been on for a couple weeks, but there's been a lot of updates. There's been some track additions, I think, on iRacing and some of the other places. And then, you're seeing stuff on F122 adding different playing options there. So let us know what you're going to do or what you are doing in that realm.
Yeah, I mean, probably getting back in the swing of things here. So, I think we with the iRacing side, think probably do some 87s. I think 87 cars at Charlotte this week on there. So I'll try to maybe run one or two races there. It's a tough. Charlotte's a tough track on the 87 car. A lot of tire wear, a lot of especially on the right front, you got to be real careful with the tires and drive fairly conservatively and manage the fuel strategy as well there. I think with the other series, IndyCar, fixed IndyCar is at Gateway, so mirroring the real schedule, uh, but a couple weeks in advance for IndyCar, so that should be interesting. Um, Always interesting on the oval side with the Indy cars. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll try the Cup or Xfinity at Richmond. The Cup Series car has been pretty interesting this year. Like it on the road courses, but I haven't really tried it too much on the short tracks. So we'll see how that goes. I think maybe on the road course side, doing a little bit of the Ferrari GT3 challenge at Okayama Circuit. Probably do some Mazda Miata is always a fun car to drive around in, and I don't know, maybe one of the F3 or Indy Pro 2000 cars. So try to do that there. I need to look at the schedule, but we'll see what I can do there, and then try to do some racing on F122. We'll see, what I'm able to do there. I'll try to hook up Twitch to that so y'all can see that, and let you know what I'm doing. But yeah, just think this week, just try to get back in the swing of things. As get back into it as back from vacation and all that stuff. So glad to be back so I can do more sim racing and be able to spend my free time doing that. So it should be interesting. So as always, you can follow the Twitch streams, Twitch TV/usailor2. Go watch those and see all the stuff that I got on there. And then see. I'll let you know when I go live for that, so you can see whatever whenever I drive and see my driving, see if I'm like any of these real drivers, or maybe I might race against some of these real drivers, which has happened before. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'll start off the close there, which again, you can see the Twitch streams, Twitch TV slash usailor2, and then go on there and make sure to subscribe or follow, and then I'll tweet it out when I go live there. And then, of course, my social media, which is Twitter TV, or yeah, twitter.com/JB Huffine. Go there and see, talk about my interests and talk about all the racing action that we saw this past weekend and all the racing we'll see next weekend and the following weeks as we get closer to the NASCAR playoffs and the conclusion of IndyCar and the finale, the conclusion to the Formula One season as well. So I'll be posting all my interests and all my thoughts on there as well, which you can follow there at JB Huffine. And then of course the YouTube stream, which we'll have up later this week, have all our episodes on there. You can see us, see our guests, see Joe, see Ralph Shaheen like we had a couple weeks ago. Go on there at Twitch, or not Twitch, but at YouTube .com/slash Gripshare Podcast. Go on there, Gripshare Podcast on YouTube. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and put post notifications on for our videos so you can see when we go post our videos, and usually try to have them up at the end of the week. So go in there and subscribe to our channel and help us grow the channel. So yeah, I'll let you take over the rest of the close there for the night, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good being back with you. And I mean, Joe Passero did a great job, as he always does, in the co host role. But, it's me and Josh. That's the show. That's the Gripster podcast. That's what we are. I mean, obviously, Joe coming in has been a great addition. But we started this thing during pandemic, and we're still in pandemic in a way, and we still have the show going. So I'm glad you're back. and you're refreshed, hopefully I can do something like that during this month. Kind of need it. You can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can find me at Gripstrip Pod on, or you can find us at Gripstrip Pod on Twitter. We are on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Podbean, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Verbal. Our YouTube page is at Gripstrip Podcast, which Josh runs and posts the videos. And we'll have the shows up here this week. A couple of shows will go up. We're trying to go and keep the content rolling, and there's going to be news. I think there's going to be some big news in regards to Kyle Busch. It looks like, since he's trending on Twitter, you have Larson won a sprint car race, so he isn't going to be running the Knoxville Nationals, it looks like. Yeah, and that's there you go. I'll go retweet that. If you want to, you're on Facebook, we're on other different places there. Instagram, Philip G. Matthew 28 for me. So please follow us, give us a like, listen, subscribe, and support us so that we can go and keep on growing this show and make it as good as we possibly can. So with that, we'll be back for episode 129 next week on the Gripstrip Podcast, talking about Richmond for Cup and Trucks. You have Formula E, NHRA going on. There'll be IndyCar at Gateway. There'll be other racing going on as well. Trying to go and figure it out off the top of my head, but there'll be upcoming events. Yeah, so it'll be a busy weekend. You'll have Watkins Glen for Cup and Xfinity. You'll have supercars at Sandown. MotoGP, Moto2 will be at Red Bull Ring in Austria. You'll also, so that'll be the racing there. So that'll be the big talking points there. We'll talk about football, talk about fantasy football next week, and the Fall Brawl League as well. So with that, for Josh, I'm Phil. Take care. God bless. And we'll see you next time on the Gripstrip Podcast. Goodbye.